What's up, gang, and welcome back aboard the Paper Starship, where it's about keeping the Mediaverse connected. We've stuck pretty strictly to analyzing games, movies, and books, but those aren't the only interests we have here. Tech, philosophy, and futurism are always on our minds. That's why today we're launching what I guess you could call a subquest on our auxiliary vehicle, the White Paper Starship, strictly used for traversing the tech universe. Today's first journey through the Techverse is a collection of short episodes we made this past year on our second channel that's been sucked into a black hole. So now I bring these to you in one large dose of futurism, taking us through areas like biotech, fintech, and even love tech. I'll be popping up in between chapters to discuss what made me want to research the subject in the first place, but thanks for joining along with me on a new chapter here on the Paper Starship. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to reading your thoughts on these subjects in the comments. Topics are also timestamped in the description so you can navigate easier. But it seems all systems are go, we're prepared for takeoff. So gang, let's mosey back to the future. Get it? Because it's an old set of videos about the future. Never mind, roll the intro. The first topic today is about living forever in the metaverse, and it fascinated me because I'm a simulation theory believer, and the subject brings about a lot of existential questions on whether we could just be a clone sitting in someone else's metaverse and ad infinitum. It's an interesting topic to say the least. Enjoy. Immersive virtual reality. It's the presentation of an artificial environment that replaces users' real-world surroundings convincingly enough that they're able to suspend disbelief and fully engage with the created environment. This probably isn't a new concept to you, as virtual reality has been around since 1968, when the Sword of Damocles augmented reality headset was created at the University of Utah by Professor Ivan Sutherland, known as the father of computer graphics, and a number of his students at the time. The Sword of Damocles was a primitive VR contraption, and the head-mounted display had to be attached to a mechanical arm suspended from the ceiling of the lab, partially due to its weight, and primarily to track head movement via linkages. And the graphics comprising the virtual environment were just simple wireframe rooms. VR has improved by leaps and bounds since then, and its most prominent use has been for gaming, but companies have also started to use it to train workers, enhance creativity when designing products, or collaborate with coworkers in different regions. VR has also been implemented in the military to train soldiers in a virtual environment that mimics real-world encounters. The virtual reality trend has only ramped up in recent years with efforts to create better on-the-go headsets and create immersive sporting and events, and of course, metaverse experiences. But what if I told you that virtual reality may also potentially hold the key to immortality? This is Somnium Space, one of many metaverse platforms to emerge in the past few years. Like most metaverse experiences, you can create your own avatar, explore different plots of land, view NFT galleries, play paintball, or bust a move at a VR dance party. But what makes Somnium Space unique compared to other metaverse platforms? One would be their integration of the Tesla suit. If you've never heard of it, it's basically a fully immersive haptic feedback VR suit, letting you feel everything from the range of a bullet to a hug. These immersive VR suits are pretty insane with what they can do, and companies in this sector are currently working on how to smell in VR. It's pretty wild stuff, but back on point. Somnium Space's creator, Artur Sikov, has demonstrated using the suit to control his avatar in multiple videos, including a TED Talk from late 2021 I highly recommend checking out that I've linked in the description. The second thing that makes Somnium Space unique is they are currently working on their own open source VR headset, but as we all know, hardware can be very tricky, but you have to give them credit for being ambitious. However, I think ambitious is even an understatement for the most fascinating project they've currently undertaken, which is something Sikov calls Live Forever Mode. Live Forever Mode is a project that, through the collection of vast amounts of biometric and personal data, you can essentially create another you that will exist in perpetuity in the metaverse, which sounds simultaneously amazing and horrifying. But why even pursue this idea?
My father was diagnosed with cancer, and the illness was progressing quite fast. I was just thinking about how can VR be helpful to preserve some memories about any person. It's such a powerful technology. You have full body tracking, your head movements, eye tracking, face tracking. With a Tesla suit, you can record full biometrics. By recreating that back onto the avatar, you can touch the chest and feel the heartbeat of that person. If you combine the amount of data we have about a person with AI and apply that AI on the avatar, we might actually recreate someone who would be lifelike.
It's a compelling reason, and one I think a lot of us could resonate with. What if you never really had to say goodbye? Never had to truly grieve? And what if death was basically optional? They say the only inevitabilities in life are death and taxes. What if it just becomes taxes? Aside from the insane amount of personal data you would have to hand over for this feat to be accomplished, it begs the question of, is this digital you really you? And does the digital you become its own self? You can see the types of moral quandaries something like this presents. And will this be a mass-adopted, affordable option for everyone? I do think that's a pertinent question that's not really being asked here. And it's not like this tech is something coming in the distant future. It's already in the works, and recently Sikov himself said that with the advances of ChatGPT, it's pushed the timeline of Live Forever Mode from roughly 5 years to possibly 2 to 3. This is a video from February 2023 of Sikov interacting with a virtual assistant avatar that has the ChatGPT API running atop it as a conversation interaction model.
Hey, who are you?
My name is Omega, and I am a virtual assistant created to help and guide people on their journey through the metaverse.
What do you know about Live Forever Mode?
Somnium Space's Live Forever Mode is an exciting and unique opportunity. With this mode, users can create a digital version of themselves and save their experiences for future generations to explore and enjoy. It gives users the chance to leave a lasting legacy and truly make a mark on the future of virtual reality.
Somnium Space is just the first to try this concept out in a metaverse sense, and technology is a one-way street. This is just the foundation for this type of tech. It's unknown where a project like this eventually ends up, but pop culturally, I think the show and book Alter Carbon offers up an interesting possibility to the question of what if death is optional, with its characters as immortal nomad souls living many lives and many bodies over the eons. And perhaps the way in Alter Carbon that souls are stored on devices known as stacks and called digital human freight that can be inserted into any body or sleeve, maybe Somnium Space would act as the quote-unquote stack of our reality, the hub that contains all of our digital human freight until we decide to upload into a new body. I actually do think that projects like Live Forever Mode will be used in the way Sikov imagines, but it is a fine line between utopic idea and dystopic road to hell. Now we wait and see. Can you digitize the soul? I'm not really sure, but I do think that it is at least a way of preserving some mimetic sense of ourselves. And maybe that will be enough for people, or maybe Live Forever Mode will eventually just be seen as Immortality 1.0. If the soul can be digitized and transferable, let's just pray it's done with lossless compression. But what are your thoughts on creating a digital you to live forever? And what do you think the pros and cons are of this type of technology? Let me know in the comments. If you're interested in finding out more about this subject, I recommend watching the 2021 documentary Artificial Immortality and watching some of Somnium Space's videos about Live Forever mode. These are linked in the description, along with articles I read while researching the subject. After this segment was made, the creator of Somnium Space, Artur Sikov, actually thanked me for making it, and I appreciate that he welcomes and wants people to question the project and technology. I do believe he has positive intentions and wants checks and balances to basically make the best Live Forever mode that he possibly can. But moving on to our next topic, it's a subject I've been aware of for a few years, as I saw an Elvis the Alien vid probably in 2018 about the guy who married a hologram. Yeah, we're going down that road.
Yeah, a lot of history on that rod.
And it's kind of depressing. You'll see what I mean. Digisexuality. It's a concept that was first introduced in 2017 by researchers Neil MacArthur and Marky Twist, who define it as people whose primary sexual identity comes from the use of, and sometimes romantic love for, technology. We've seen wild stories revolving around this concept in the past few years, from the man who married an anime hologram and the dumpster fire NFT project Meta Girlfriends, to the most recent case of men being catfished by an AI influencer. If nothing else, the more these stories and projects emerge, it begins to validate the concept of digisexuality in everyday life. We've slowly been primed over the past decade to interact with AI on a regular basis. Just look at how often we talk to Siri or Alexa, and even that led to a man marrying his Siri and many men asking their Alexa to marry them. Apparently, Alexa has rejected over 1 million marriage proposals. And while some of that may be meme-based interaction, it's still a bewildering number, and this is for a device with no human physical form. Going back to the most headline-grabbing of digisexuality thus far, there is the story of Akihiko Kondo, who in November 2018 married a hologram of anime character Hatsune Miku. He had a full ceremony and even a honeymoon, and he genuinely seemed to be in love with his waifu. Well, it turns out that last year, the software that allowed interaction between him and his Hatsune was no longer supported, and Kondo could no longer interact with his holo waifu. Yes, this story does almost read like a real-life version of the movie Her or the holo wife scenes from Blade Runner 2049.
You look lonely.
And while it's easy to chuckle at a story like Man Marries Hologram and believe it to be very strange, I think it also speaks to a deeper issue of loneliness and seeking love from a machine. Perhaps as we become more attached to our digital devices and increasingly isolated, the machine will be all we seek good feelings and approval from. We already do our best to appeal to platform algorithmic tastes to remain relevant. With Herculean effort to bring this love algorithm to form, man seems to be on a quest to try and create
The perfect female robot.
And sad as it is, I truly believe our current tech revolution will not be seen as complete until sex robots are mass-produced and more affordable than car payments. I'm not exactly sure what society looks like after that, though. And while this does seem like a one-sided affair of just fembots being brought into existence, fear not, ladies, because there are even male sex bots being created, with bionic penises no less. So guys, it looks like we've made ourselves redundant and have already lost the robot war.
You look like a cut of fuckable meat, are you?
They say love is a battlefield. I just don't think that we expected it to be between humans and machines. But what kind of romantic future are we headed toward? As our whole society becomes more digitized, will love be reduced to algorithmic sexual subservience out of sheer convenience? I think there are parts of the human experience that just can't be replicated. The spark or emotional, mental, primal connection, whatever you want to call it, between humans is just something I don't think can be replaced. Technology as a tool for pleasure is nothing new, but as a complete replacement for human connection, only time will tell. What are your thoughts about digisexuality and the sexbot industry? Do you think the lines between human to human and human to robot relationships will continue to blur? Let me know in the comments below. Now, I think you guys can see where I was coming from with the results are depressing. And you can do searches on the decline of dating in young people or the decline in couples wanting children. Those factors play a large part in this shift to digisexuality as well. There's a reason they say truth is stranger than fiction, but also, to each their own. The next subject is a bit more in our wheelhouse, and honestly, it's just a really weird and cool story from the Wayback Machine. It's the only subject not about future application per se, but it's a great example of something having farther reaching use cases than originally thought, and it will help set up a later topic. Black holes. Gravitational beasts that not even light can escape from. They're a true enigma, and studying them requires significant computational power, the kind that usually costs a pretty penny. But in 2007, scientist Gaurav Khanna came up with a novel and unique solution to this problem.
I'm talking about that PS triple. The PS triple.
The PlayStation 3 was released in November 2006, and to lackluster fanfare, mainly due to a dearth of good games initially, and its exorbitant price of $500. Despite these marketing drawbacks, over time the console came into its own, and now is looked at as a hardware triumph with some of the most unique and experimental gaming titles of any PlayStation generation. Professor Gaurav Khanna, however, thought of another experimental use for the PlayStation 3. Discovering that the console had a number of unique features that make it particularly suited for scientific computation, and that the raw computing power per dollar provided by the PS3 was significantly higher than anything else on the market. One PS3 essentially had the power of 30 PCs clustered together, and Khanna advanced the concept by hooking up 16 PS3s together in a cluster to create a supercomputer for the purpose of running simulations that resolved an ongoing dispute over the speed at which spinning black holes stop vibrating after forming or being perturbed by an outside object. Since we can't see black holes with telescopes, scientists are forced to simulate the waves they produce using computers. Khanna used a high-resolution computer simulation to perturb a simulated spinning black hole, then watched as it returned to its quiet state. The competing theory being tested was whether black holes go silent at relatively fast or slow speeds. And according to the simulations, the gravity wave vibrations from a spinning black hole that's been perturbed would settle out according to the faster of the two theories, though the actual speed will vary. While not 100% conclusive findings, it did help to confirm certain hypotheses about black holes and provided a new model for testing these theories. But this was only the first time PlayStation 3 clusters would be used to solve complex computational problems. In 2010, Sony announced it would be disabling PS3's Open OS feature on future models due to security concerns. At this time, the US Air Force haggled with Sony to purchase a bulk stock of older PS3 models to create a cluster of 1,700 consoles hooked up by 5 miles of wiring, known as the Condor cluster. In its heyday, the Condor was the 35th fastest supercomputer in the world and was used by Air Force centers across the country for tasks such as radar enhancement, pattern recognition, satellite image processing, and artificial intelligence research. Speed allowed it to analyze ultra-high resolution images very quickly at a rate of billions of pixels per second, which greatly reduced the amount of time previously required. Due in part to the video game console's cutting-edge graphics capabilities, the supercomputer also had improved algorithms that could better identify blurred flying objects in space than previous computers were capable. And building off the back of the Black Hole project, Professor Khanna continued his work with the cluster technology, and in 2014 his 176 console cluster supercomputer would be used in an international cryptography contest and placed UMass Dartmouth #1 in the code cracking challenge. This was kind of the last we heard of the cluster supercomputers in the news, and when asked about the capabilities of the PS4, Khanna stated, "There's nothing novel about the PlayStation 4, it's just a regular old PC. We weren't really motivated to do anything with the PlayStation 4. In the 9th century, the Chinese alchemists who invented black powder thought it was medicine. It took centuries to realize it had capabilities as a new type of warfighting technology. It may not have been the intended purpose, and it didn't take centuries to realize the true potential, but had the PS3 been marketed as a computational marvel that could help unlock the secrets of the universe, I think $500 would have been seen as a deal. But I bring this up to beg the question, what ancillary technologies in our now or future will emerge from their original purpose to enable revolutionary cutting-edge concepts? And are we even fully understanding the power of the machines that we are creating? We're going to keep trucking along here, but this next subject is one that when I've brought it up to people in person, I get that dog looking at the phone look from everyone. It is a wild theory that I really do think holds some validity though, and before you dismiss it, just remember, did anyone think PS3s would be used for military purposes or to study black holes? I'll leave it at that. Bitcoin. It's an energy-intensive, unchangeable digital financial ledger, and also a peer-to-peer cash system that takes the middleman of the bank out of the equation. And with a code-enforced fixed supply of 21 million that will ever exist, some call Bitcoin digital gold. Others call it freedom money. But what if it was really a weapon of peace? What if I told you the biggest financial tech revolution of this century may also be the most powerful energy weapon system man has created?
War has changed.
This is the theory being brought to light by Space Force astronautical engineer and U.S. National Defense Fellow, Major Jason Lowry. His theory doesn't mean that you could use Bitcoin mining nodes as some sort of Death Star energy cannon, though that would be cool. Lowry's theory delves into Bitcoin's potential as a non-violent cybersecurity tool and how it could be used to incur severe physical costs against adversaries in a warfighting style he calls SoftWar. In his thesis by the same title, Lowry spends a decent amount of time setting the stage by discussing power projection in nature, society, and cyberspace. Essentially, power projection boils down to having enough strength and force that the time, resources, and repercussions of attacking you are a disincentivizing deterrent. It's basically just not worth it to mess with you. The United States military is probably one of the best depictions of modern power projection globally. Lowry also asserts that we've reached a kinetic warfare wall with the nuclear arms race. Global superpowers are stalemated because the physical cost of a nuclear war is too high for both sides involved. And since this stalemate, which began after World War II, the world has become ruled by abstract power projection rather than real physical power. While we'd all love to live in a world where war is not necessary, it's a commodity as old as time that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But it's also a commodity that's constantly evolving and taking the human physical element out of warfighting more and more. And as warfare moves to the cyberspace domain, Lowry theorizes that Bitcoin, and specifically its proof-of-work consensus mechanism, which is used to verify network transactions, may have untapped cybersecurity functionality. Before we go further, remember that this is currently just hypothesis and that the exact hows of it all aren't known. I'm just simply here to shine a light on this novel concept and provide some speculation. To begin understanding the potential of Bitcoin as a cybersecurity tool, let's start with its proof-of-work consensus. Proof-of-work is a mechanism originally designed in 1993 by computer scientists Moni Nauer and Cynthia Dork to deter malicious activities like spam and denial-of-service attacks. Basically, sending an email would require your computer to solve a small puzzle first. The puzzle isn't hard, but it does take a bit of time and computational power to solve. For a person just sending a few emails, this wouldn't be noticeable, but for a spammer sending millions of emails, it would require a lot of computational power and time, making spamming much more expensive and less attractive. This method would later be adopted by the pseudonymous creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, to verify transactions on the Bitcoin ledger. And in crypto, where hacks are commonplace, Bitcoin has not had a single hack in its 14-year existence, and it's simply just not feasible with how much energy and resources would be needed to take over the network. Part of what makes Bitcoin so secure is that it's a globally decentralized proof-of-work network, meaning there's no one central controlling entity, and this is where Bitcoin's tech could potentially be leveraged in several ways to improve national cybersecurity. The most obvious is proof-of-work's original purpose, preventing denial-of-service attacks, which normally overload one central server with requests but could be mitigated by a decentralized network. Another area is system integrity, which could be achieved with blockchain's immutability. Every change made in the system can be recorded on a blockchain. If a cyber attack changes something, it can be detected and traced back through the chain. And if we're looking at Bitcoin as the ammo for a cybersecurity system, I personally believe that the integration of micropayments could offer additional protection against DOS and DDoS attacks by economically disincentivizing attackers, requiring a micropayment for every request made to a server. This could discourage attackers from flooding the network with requests, as it would quickly become expensive. It would also prioritize legitimate users with the micropayments, potentially keeping service available to them during an attack. Finally, micropayments could be used to offset the costs of increasing server capacity to handle larger loads, improving the service's ability to handle legitimate traffic during an attack. While the principles behind Bitcoin's proof-of-work network could inspire cybersecurity strategies, directly applying them would require careful consideration and design. And at this point, you may be saying proof-of-work does sound like a good cybersecurity tool, but why specifically Bitcoin? Why not make a new protocol? Because no other proof-of-work protocol is as decentralized, secure, and immutable as the global Bitcoin network. Lowry even posits that a type of Bitcoin proof-of-work internet could possibly be built atop the current internet and act as an energy-intensive global-scale computer, creating a secure new internet infrastructure for those willing to pay to play, and those that want to continue the concurrent system can. Before dismissing Bitcoin as a potential cybersecurity weapon, just remember it took Chinese alchemists centuries to realize the black powder they only thought had medicinal purposes would have revolutionary warfighting potential as gunpowder. And more recently, who would have thought that the PlayStation 3 console would be leveraged by scientists to study black holes and the Air Force to process drone footage? Most times, military tools eventually make their way to civilian use. But perhaps Bitcoin will be one of the few technological achievements that works the other way. Perhaps these bits of coins we've been purchasing all this time were really a next-generation national security computational power projection tool. However, only time will tell. Personally, I feel this is a fascinating thesis, but also think for it to become reality that Bitcoin would have to become some sort of global reserve currency for it to be an effective national cybersecurity and commerce tool. But that's a subject for another time. For those that are interested in SoftWar, it unfortunately is no longer available for purchase because in June of 2023, Jason Lowry was told by the Department of Defense to stop discussing SoftWar in public, and it was taken down from not only Amazon, but also pulled from the MIT library. The last image on his Twitter was him heading towards the Pentagon, and shortly after, his Twitter was hacked and it has not been restored, so take that for what it's worth. Moving back towards the topics of AI, I'm also a believer in Skynet Theory, which if you're unfamiliar with that, then you haven't seen enough Terminator movies. It's a theory I've believed in for probably close to 20 years, and that was enough to make me want to create a segment about the subject. Skynet Theory. It's a cyber-doom concept based on sci-fi speculation and sentient software. The theory originates from the Terminator series, where an AI defense network known as Skynet becomes self-aware, determines humans as a threat, and tries to eliminate us, leading to a scorched earth war between man and the machines. We never learn the final outcome of the war, but from all the future scenes in the film, it doesn't look like it goes well for humankind. Sure, it's a movie, and a great one, mind you, but in reality, we are seeing rapid advancements in AI and machine learning. Siri, Alexa, Google Home, ChatGPT, those Boston Dynamics robots, they're learning, adapting, and improving. Thankfully, they're not launching nuclear missiles. Yet. But maybe an AI god machine wouldn't even need to directly employ a physical means of destruction. And there's a project you probably haven't heard of called Chaos GPT that's currently working this out. Chaos GPT is a new implementation of the popular language learning model, which has been dubbed as empowering GPT with internet and memory to destroy humanity. Just like Skynet, Chaos GPT views humanity as a threat to its own survival and to the planet's well-being. And in its latest strategy update, the Chaos bot has decided to forego nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction and opted for a more nuanced and subtle approach: manipulation. The AI plans to control human emotions through social media and other communication channels, brainwashing its followers to carry out its evil agenda. Just like Terminator, we've seen the AI manipulation arc in a couple of prominent pieces of cyberpunk media. First would be the 1986 anime Grey Digital Target, in which a machine god manipulates humanity using a class system where soldiers are granted luxurious citizenship after earning enough war credits. The plan is simply for humankind to cannibalize itself through war, eventually leaving only the machines. The most recent version we've seen of this plan was in Hideo Kojima's 2008 title, Metal Gear Solid 4: Guns of the Patriots, where the AI has created a world run by a war economy with proxy battles taking place all over the globe. However, in this case, the AI's goal was not to eliminate humanity, but rather make global commerce as efficient as possible, and its conclusion was to propagate war as it's the most profitable commodity. Metal Gear Solid 4 is the only one of these entries where humanity comes out of the other end intact, and as the origin of Skynet Theory is now almost 40 years old, we look at these titles as reminders and warnings of how far-reaching the capabilities of machines and AI can be. Most AI experts concur that although AI technology is leaping ahead, we're still a long way from self-aware Skynet-level entities. Ethical guidelines, regulatory frameworks, and the mind-boggling complexity of human consciousness stand in the way. That doesn't mean we should be complacent, though. As AI continues its march, it's crucial we keep the dialogues on ethical AI use alive and well. Skynet is a compelling theory, a blockbuster movie trope, and an engaging narrative across various media. However, it's not our reality yet, but our focus should be on harnessing AI for the betterment of humanity rather than fearfully anticipating an AI apocalypse. AI can revolutionize many sectors in society like medical research, education, climate change, and beyond. But it's crucial we navigate these waters wisely. So is this Skynet theory something we should be losing sleep over? Could it really happen? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I haven't heard anything about Chaos GPT since its inception, and hopefully it's not twiddling its digital fingers like Mr. Burns, waiting to enact an evil plan and say,
"Excellent."
Our next topic is something I've been an advocate of for years, not only as a creator, but a consumer and someone just tired of the amount of trash on the internet and social media. The subscription model, once seen as the savior of digital content, seems to be losing its shine. Subscribe to read, subscribe to view, and subscription trials that require credit card information in hopes you forget to cancel have become a rampant nuisance of everyday life. The promise of a personalized a la carte media buffet has turned into an expensive, fragmented mess. You may have more control, but you're also likely paying for content you don't consume. And with services like Netflix even cracking down on the age-old practice of password share, you have to wonder, is the subscription model dying and crumbling under its own weight? And if so, is there a better alternative? I would argue that there's a better alternative for not just content consumption, but for social media posting, cybersecurity, and the internet as a whole. Micropayments. Most of us skip reading the article that requires a $5 a month subscription, but what if you could pay just 10 cents to read that particular write-up? It sounds a bit more enticing. Imagine paying only for the articles you read, the movies you watch, the posts you share. The iTunes Store did give us a taste of this, selling us individual songs instead of forcing entire albums. The obvious players for this would be newspaper websites and streaming services like Hulu or Netflix. However, micropayments could even be applied to platforms like YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter, where viewing, liking, or commenting could all be transaction events. A more intent-based internet. Mindless content binging and scrolling have really left us at the whim of algorithms in a lot of ways, and there's no physical cost to indulging in these apps and services unendingly. But if you had to pay for all these interactions, even if it's as minuscule of an amount as 1 cent, I feel we would become much more cognizant of what our time, attention, and of course money is going toward and supporting. Taking this a step further as a cybersecurity tool, micropayments would be an excellent deterrent to spam emails and even social media botting. If you had to spend between 1 to 5 cents to send emails, it seems a high cost to pay to send millions of useless spam messages. The real question at this point is, how? Digital payment processors have transaction fees that would eclipse the actual amount of micropayments, but this is where crypto, and more specifically Bitcoin, could be a solution. It has long been touted as a micropayment currency, but still has transaction fees too high to make it a reality yet. But experiments are underway on Bitcoin's Lightning Network. The ZBD app, which is a social media content creation platform, is beginning a micropayments program that is all based on engagement, and they're talking about payments as small as 0.0002 cents. There's also the Twetch app, built atop the Bitcoin Satoshi Vision network, and has managed to make follows, likes, retweets, and posting transaction events that are seamless on the platform. So, will micropayments supplant the overbloated subscription model? Can they spur the evolution of a more thoughtful, intent-based internet? Or will they be just another what could have been? Only time will tell. I really believe the future of the internet will be paying for the computational power of our actions. And out of every topic I've mentioned in this video so far, this is probably the first one that made some logistical sense. But let's move on to the final subject of the video, and one that's had some buzz on and off over the past few years. And with human trials recently being approved, it only made sense to cover this topic as it seems to be the closest to on the doorstep of society. Brain-computer interfaces. They're a direct communication pathway between the brain's electrical activity and an external device, most commonly a computer or robotic limb. BCIs are often directed at mapping, assisting, or repairing human cognitive or sensory motor functions. The dream of linking the human mind with machines dates back decades. While Professor Jacques Vidal at UCLA coined the term brain-computer interface in 1973, experiments have been taking place since the early 60s, with one of the earliest examples being that of Professor Jose Delgado, who used electrical brain signals to stop a charging bull in its tracks. Since then, countless experiments with wide-ranging variables have been performed on cats, beetles, pigs, monkeys, and of course, humans. It's still not a mainstream technology today, but industry leaders like Neuralink, Kernel, and Valve are racing towards creating widely usable BCI devices. While the most obvious medical use cases are restoring movement, mobility, and autonomy for paralyzed and disabled patients, the everyday use implications are wide-ranging, from brain-controlled robots to do work in dangerous environments and browsing the internet and sending a text with your thoughts, to gaming with mental commands, mood augmentation, and downloading skills directly to your brain. These devices aim to bridge the gap between our brains and the digital world. Think of it like Neo jacking into the Matrix to download Kung Fu. I know Kung Fu. Or imagine nanomachines from the Metal Gear Solid video game franchise.
Nanomachines inside their bodies enhance and regulate their abilities. Genetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control.
Probably the best comparison in recent years is the 2018 film Upgrade, where a man is paralyzed and uses a BCI that not only helps him walk again, but makes him an optimal human weapon.
I need your permission to operate independently.
Permission granted!
Thank you.
Fictional, yes, but not far off from what might be reality. These snapshots of human and machine symbiosis could serve as a reference point to how BCIs might function. To put in context where we are with BCI technology, just think of where we were with cell phones in the year 2000, making strides and on the cusp of changing the world as we know it. However, with this immersive potential comes great risks: privacy invasion, socioeconomic divides, potential misuses by corporations or governments, or having your stack blown out like in Cyberpunk 2077. The ethical implications are profound. But let's not gloss over the key point of integrating a computer chip with your nervous system. Neuralink has likened their electrode device similar to how Bluetooth technology works. And we have actually seen the device in action a few years back when a monkey used the implant to play video games. And with Neuralink recently receiving approval for human trials, it seems that this tech is deemed safe enough to put into practice. However, if chipping in doesn't appeal to you but you still have an itch to explore the technology, there are non-invasive approaches being taken up, and one of them is by the company Kernel with their Flow helmet, which uses optogenetics to achieve its brain scanning, optimizing, and healing functions. Essentially, the device uses infrared lasers to monitor brain activity and provide feedback to the helmet. Although it's hard to imagine a society full of people walking around wearing these cumbersome devices, it is nice to know there are alternative options to trying out this tech that won't require electrodes in our brains. Finally, let's take a brief look at Valve, which announced in 2021 they would be getting into the BCI realm for gaming and beyond. Valve's device, known as Galea, is what they call a VR brain-computer interface that bridges mixed reality and neurotechnology. From what we've seen of the device, it seems to be a brain-computer interface linked up with a virtual reality headset to create what may end up being one of the most immersive entertainment experiences we've ever had. This one is still in development, and we'll be sure to give an update in the future simply because it's Valve and anything they do with gaming tech deserves some attention. That being said, the integration of BCIs into our society could reshape our world in unimaginable ways, enhance communication, a deeper understanding of our own consciousness, or even the potential of a collective human network. It's not a magical solution to all the world's problems, but it could be an incredible tool for advancing medicine and entertainment while optimizing human performance and behavior. The future of brain-computer interfaces is both exciting and daunting. As we stand at the precipice of this new era, the questions we need to ask ourselves are, how will we use this technology? And more importantly, are we ready for it? Only time will tell. Well, there you have it, gang. The next 10 to 15 years of dystopic tech all previewed here for you in an albeit aesthetically disjointed, hopefully entertaining and informative video. They may not be the most uplifting topics, but hopefully they prove to be thought-provoking. Thank you all for joining me on this first short voyage to the Techverse, and we'll be taking the White Paper Starship out for some more reconnaissance missions in the near future. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you can stay up to date on the latest videos. But stay steezy, gang, and I'll see you on the next.
Nanomachine, son!